Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Past the Wire TV. Thanks for tuning in. We're just over a week out from the 149th Kentucky Derby. Tonight, we are going to talk about the Kentucky Derby by the numbers, Thorograph numbers, that is. I've been using Thorograph for a long, long time. I started years ago with magazines, and there's an interesting article on Past the Wire about how I came to know the sheets, which they were referred to back then, and they weren't used nearly as much or by as many people as they are today. Thorograph, I don't even think was out yet. Magazines was. The regs, as they are known, but they were called really the sheets back then, and the computer sheet guys, everybody knew who they were. Jonathan Hardoon, who was still around, Jeff Hardoon, his brother, I believe, guy named Teddy. There are a couple of guy named Alan. They were the New York sheet guys originally, and the articles about how I started using regs and how that guy Teddy, who was part of that crew, taught me how to use them and why he taught me how to use them and how that came about. It's a really interesting article. I think a lot of you will like it, and I'll put a link to it in this video. I ultimately gravitated to Thorograph, which I've been using for a long, long time. I am a fan of Thorograph. I do use them. I like to do things differently. And use things differently. And, you know, tools are tools. Everybody looks at things their way. You know, we can all look at the same past performances. I use Formulator. We could all look at the same past performances and interpret and read them differently. And sheets or Thorograph, same thing. Really all comes down to patterns, how you interpret the patterns, how you read the patterns and what they mean to you and what you look for. And Thorograph has great tutorials and information on their website, on Thorograph.com. And you know, you really need to familiarize yourself with all of that. But at the end of the day, once you do learn it, and then you kind of incorporate it into your own arsenal and what you look for and what it means to you. And that comes with time, like anything else. And anybody who wants to talk more about it, reach out. I'm happy to talk. I mean, there's a lot of people I've explained to, you know, how I read Thorograph or any sheets. And, you know, I'm happy to do it for anybody who reaches out to me. And there are some of you out there that have probably already done it with. Now, I will put a link to that article. Read it. It's interesting. It's a little funny, but a little humbling. But I think you'll like it. Now, I've never been a fan of raw speed figures. Okay, buyer numbers. Certain other speed figures. I mentioned buyer because they're probably the most popular, because that's a raw speed figure. You know, I could look at the past performances and see, you know, how fast every horse ran every quarter, what they came home in, what they, you know, went at first, I could see the track variant. I could see the charts for the day and see how the track and everything was playing. Thorograph, they incorporate, ground loss, wind, trips, things like that into the figure. So to me, it's a lot more meaningful. At the end of the day, it still comes down to how you interpret them and patterns. I believe, all right, my way of looking at sheets is that they reveal patterns and form cycles and trends in horses that will show that a horse is going to go forward, going to repeat, or going to regress. Now, is that going to isolate a winner? Probably not. And when they do isolate winners, so many people use these things now, and we have such an information overload at our disposal now that when that does happen, everybody knows it, and the horse is a short price. I can tell you there were times years ago where there was a horse that was just flat out faster than everybody else in the race, and the only way you knew it is by looking at magazines or Thorograph, and horse could be 20-1 because there weren't a lot of people looking. So those days, I would say, are pretty much gone the way my traditional pick sixes for the most part are gone. But they are still an extremely valuable tool, and if used properly, and we'll touch a little bit on that. We're going to, this is about the Derby rundown. We'll touch a little bit about that. It can be a very valuable tool, an edge, and help you make some scores. Now, what I like to use them for and how I kind of work them into my game, okay? I like to go different, okay? Everybody zigs, I want to zag in horse racing. That's just my nature. What I like to use them for, what I like to do is identify horses that I would say three things: that are going to move forward, that are going to regress or maybe stay the same, or are flat out too slow, not too fast, too slow to win. Even if they move forward, they're too slow to win, because eliminating a horse is as valuable to me as coming up with a horse. All right. I can eliminate a horse and know he's too slow, he can't win. That's one less to worry about on the win end. So that's kind of how I've incorporated Thorograph into my game today. You may want to do it differently. I always say whatever works for you, and to stick with that. But that's what I do. So we're going to run down, the Derby horses, and I'll give you my thoughts on their patterns. Okay. This is not a show for selections or anything like that. We're not going to come up with the winner. We may back into them, but that's not the purpose of this show. It's just to understand the patterns, who's moving forward, who's moving backwards. There's a lot of other intangibles, who's going to get the distance and pace and all of that. So it's no shortcut. You still got to do your homework, but it is a help. And I think a lot of you will get a lot out of, I think, my interpretation of the patterns, and I've been doing it a long time, so it certainly won't hurt, and you certainly don't have to agree. Always go with your own opinion. I always go with my opinion. You should always go with yours. We are having our annual Derby seminar. I'll put a link to that in the video. I encourage everybody to sign up. We're going to go over the Oaks card, the Derby card, key races, key spots. We always, do a bang-up job on these seminars. We've had great success. Everybody that joins loves them. Nobody ever complains, and it certainly can't hurt. And we'll have some fun. Maybe make some money. Angel of Empire is definitely a horse that went forward from 2 to 3, which is something that you definitely want to see. He run a 9-1, a 9, his first start as a 3-year-old. That was 2 points faster than his best start at 2. At 2, his pattern was really nothing to speak of, so he's definitely moved forward. He's paired 2s, a 2.2, then a straight 2 in his last 2 starts, one at the fairgrounds, one at Oakland Park. When I see 2 2s like that, very steady, rock solid, probably going to repeat that if he gets the distance, maybe even go forward. So I would say he's definitely got what I would consider a very positive winning like pattern. Confidence Game is a horse who has steadily gone forward, which is something I like a lot. Okay. Even at 2, he paired 13-2, 13-2, 12-12, 9. First time out as a 3-year-old, runs a 7. Okay. A 7 is not nearly fast enough to win this race. So my gut would say, based on Thorograph strictly, he's too slow. But he does look like he's going to go forward even off the layoff. But 1.25 miles layoff, was he going to go forward? 6, 5, 4, maybe. Still not fast enough. So his pattern is not indicative of a horse that can win this race. Now, the fluke would be that he can get the 1.25 miles and a lot of the other ones can't. I don't remember the name of the horse, but there was a horse a couple of years ago that won the Alabama for Ken McPeak. I do not remember her name, but on Rags and on Thorograph, which I use it, like I said, she looked too slow. She went easy because nobody else got the 1.25 miles, and she did. So there's intangibles. It's not a shortcut. It's a tool. But Confidence Game, to me, looks like he may go forward, but doesn't look fast enough to win. Continuar, the lesser regarded of the 2 Japanese horses, unless Mandarin Hero somehow pulls a rabbit out of his hat and gets in with 3 or 4 defections. I don't know exactly how many he needs at this point, but if he gets in, then that, we got 3 Japanese horses in here. I don't think it's going to happen. Continuar is another one that's got a forward moving pattern. He's got an 8 in his last race at 2. No number in it for 2 starts before that, which is not that uncommon in races out of the country. But he run a 7 and then he run a 4. So he's going forward. He's going the right way. Yeah, theoretically, you can go from a 4 to a 2 pretty easily. 7-4-2 would be a very logical pattern, which on the numbers would put him right there. But class-wise and, a lot of other factors, might be a knock, but we're strictly talking about patterns. He's got a pattern going forward, and if he goes forward enough, he can possibly get into it based strictly on that. I believe, and I haven't gone through them all yet, I only glanced, but Derma Sotogake has run the fastest race of anybody. He run a 1 at the Maidan in the UAE Derby. He's got to overcome that whole no UAE Derby winner ever hitting the board in the Kentucky Derby, let alone winning it. So he's got all of that to overcome, but he's going to be on the lead. He's a mind your biscuits, doesn't really scream Kentucky Derby to me anyway, but he's speed. He's got the fastest number. If he runs back to that 1, it's a winning number. You know what I mean? 2, 1, 0, negative 0, negative 1. Those are all numbers that can win. Anywhere from a 2 or faster, I'd say can win this race. Disarm, nice pattern, 15 to a 6 in his 2-year-old races. Comes back as a 3-year-old. Doesn't beat the number in his first start. Runs a 9. Then pairs 5s. One of the things I always look for on the numbers is when a horse runs a 2 and I look at his best number, first time out at 3, I like to see them go past that number and run faster than that number. If they don't, it's a negative to me. I don't like that pattern. So this is interesting because on paper, he's not a toss, but based on the numbers, he looks a little slow. Even with the paired 5s, I love paired numbers like that. Indicates a forward move. Okay, forward to what? 3, maybe, 2 points forward. I don't know, looks a little too slow for my liking. Forte, interesting. Okay. Forte has been rock solid his last 5 starts. Okay. 7 first time out, 10, decent numbers for a 2-year-old at that time of year, but not like wow. Then he goes all the way forward at Saratoga in his second start at the spot to a 3. Then he pairs 2 in the 2 races at Keeneland, the second being the Breeders' Cup. He runs 2-3, 2-2, fast races, good enough to compete here. Comes back as a 3-year-old and doesn't go past the number, equals it. So he gets a pass for that. That's okay. I like to see them go forward. He didn't, but he equaled it. He runs a 2-2. Then he wins the Florida Derby, but he regresses. He runs a 3-2. So he goes back a point. Not a positive sign number-wise to me. I like to see the same thing or go forward a little bit. I like a forward-moving pattern. Now, is that a knock on Forte? Number-wise, I would say in my book, the way I look at it, it is. He didn't go forward. Now, here's where we got back to handicap. Okay, he had the 12 hole. He was wide. He was already in the Derby. Was he fully cranked up? Did Todd tell Irad, listen, we're in the race. Let's not, gut him today. There's all those factors, but strictly by the numbers, I don't like that 2 and the first start at 3 going back to a 3. A little bit of a regression there. Not a bounce, okay, but a regression. Not really what I want to see. And when you pair that with him not really going forward, him equaling his best 2-year-old race, not the best pattern. Still a beast and still can win off any one of those numbers. So by no way am I indicating or stating that he's based on this any kind of a toss or anything like that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this pattern is not one that jumps out great pattern to me, but ultra consistent and certainly fast enough to win. Hit show's a little interesting. He's got a very fast race in his last start as a 2-year-old. He run a 4.3, but he comes back. Aqueduct first time out runs a 2. Then he runs a 4.2 in the Wood Memorial between horses. Kind of a rough trip, slowed him up a little bit, but the horse inside of him was a maiden. The horse outside of him who won the race was a big long shot. 2, then he regressed to a 4, was still in the fight, but again, don't like the 2 to a 4. I like it. He regressed to me, not a sign that he's moving forward off that race. So his pattern is not one for me that screams moving forward. Jace's Road, going back to his 2-year-old races, 8.2, 8.2, fast race, 4.2. Comes back as a 3-year-old, goes back to an 8.2, so he didn't go forward in that first start, then runs a 4.3. Still hasn't passed his best 3-year-old number with 2 starts as a 2-year-old. Don't like it, pattern-wise. Again, we're not handicapping the race today. We're talking my interpretations of the patterns on Thorograph and how I look at them. Other people may look at them differently, yourself included, but we're talking about how I look at them. King's Barn, undefeated horse, no starts at 2. So he's got that against him if you look at that as a negative, but Justify overcame it. No reason he can't. He runs a 9 first time out, not particularly fast, jumps forward 5 points to a 4.2, goes forward again to a 3. Looks to me pattern-wise on Thorograph that he will go forward again if he gets the distance. And he's a 3. He's at a 3. So he goes forward to a 2, 1, whatever, puts him right there. So interesting. People will say, well, the time of his last race was slow. He ran slow in Louisiana, tossed a race. He's not fast enough. Thorograph disagrees. Okay, he run 3. 3 is not too slow by any means. 3 is not a slow race. That's why Thorograph can be an invaluable tool in your arsenal. Okay, trip, wind, all these other factors, ground loss, everything gets taken into account when they come up with these numbers. And that's why I don't go by raw speed figures where he didn't get a good buy, the race was slow. Thorograph says otherwise, and I've learned over the years, pay attention. King Russell has a little bit of a mystery pattern. He was not that fast at 2. At 3, he ran a 10, run another 10, then he jumped up to a 5. So he went 5 points forward. Shows you the kind of moves these horses can make, especially 3-year-olds lightly raced early in the year. As they get older, you don't really see that. That worries me a little bit. 5-point jump off the 2 10s. That may have took a lot out of him. That's the kind of horse that can regress off that as opposed to go forward. So his pattern doesn't jump out at me as a horse going forward. Lord Miles, 9, first time out as a 2-year-old. This year runs 8, 17-1, 10-1, 4.2 in the Wood Memorial. Another one made a big jump up, 6 points. Worries me that he can repeat that. May regress off that big forward move, and that's what you would call a bounce. A bounce is just a regression off a new top. Some people don't believe in the bounce. I do, but that's ultimately what it is. A lot of people who don't believe in it don't even understand what it actually is. Next horse we'll talk about is Mage. Mage is another one that lightly raced, didn't run at 2 like King's Barnes. And I will tell you this, I thought it was a big ask of Mage to run him in the Kentucky Derby off those 3 races. I thought it was a perfect candidate to get a confidence builder, pass the Derby, and be like a live as heck new shooter in the Preakness. But you can't knock anybody from running in the Derby if they think they got a shot. Even if they don't think they got a shot, if they're in the race and they run, they run. Can't knock anybody for that. Okay, I certainly can. So Mage is in the race. Mage has, I didn't think I was going to gravitate to him. And like we haven't done the work yet. But we don't know the draw. We don't know the weather. There's so much that goes into this. But for the seminar, we'll know all of that. He's got a phenomenal pattern, in my opinion. 5, 5, 3. Looks like he's going to jump if he handles the distance and he's not overwhelmed by the lack of seasoning. 5, 5, 3. I could see a 2. I could see a 1. I can even see a 0 if he's a really good horse. If he goes forward, puts him and gets the distance, puts him square in the race. I don't care if he ran at 2, 1, whatever. Doesn't make no difference to me. If we're talking strictly on the Thorographs, this horse fits, has a forward moving pattern, and looks dangerous based on that. So that's Mage. Major dude, I don't know if he's in the race or not. I don't know he's on my list. I don't think he is. He's got 8, 7, 7. Even if he goes forward again, looks a little bit slow. Mandarin Hero, I like a lot if he gets in, but he's probably not going to. We won't spend much time on him. But he ran a 3 in the Santa Anita Derby. Goes forward off that. He's right in the thick of it. And that was a troubled trip 3. So if he gets in, pay attention. Practical Move. Another one that didn't really surpass his best 2-year-old number. His last start at 2 at Los Al, he run a 3-3. He come back at Santa Anita, run a 3-3. And in the Santa Anita Derby, he run a 4-2. Now, here's the interesting thing about ground loss and buyers and raw figures and times, okay? We're going to go back to Mandarin Hero for a second, okay? This is something I love when this happens. Mandarin Hero in the Santa Anita Derby runs 2nd. Practical Move beat him. Mandarin Hero got a 3-3. The winner got a 4-2. So that shows the ground loss and the trouble and how Thorograph factors that in. The second place horse got a better number than the winner. I love when that happens. And a lot of people just looking at past performances don't see that, you know? So those are the kind of things that you see in Thorograph that are like, you know, a little bit of an edge and something. A lot of people use Thorograph, so a lot of people will see it. But some people might not know how meaningful and important that is. But when a horse that runs behind another horse gets a better horse than that number, than that other horse, I pay attention. I like that a lot. But practical move on the numbers, he's got to go forward. He didn't go forward in second off the layoff, as a 3-year-old, and his first start didn't surpass the 2-year-old number. So pattern wise, I don't like it. Race Kane. Race Kane was actually pretty fast at 2. But he was kind of like up and down. Runs a 21, not fast, jumps to a 7, big jump forward, regresses off that, runs back quick, and regresses off that, runs an 11, lays off, runs fairgrounds, jumps forward to a 6. So you see the pattern: 21, 7, 11, 6. Slow, jumps forward, regresses, jumps forward again. That was his pattern at 2. And like I said, you see patterns with these horses. But he changed up a little bit at 3. He runs a 12 first time out, a 12-1, not particularly fast, doesn't go past the number, but then he comes up with 2 4s. He comes up with a 4-1 and a 4-2. I like that he paired the 4s. He's got pros and cons. Strictly off the Thorograph, he's a horse that can move forward, and his numbers say he can get in the race if he does move forward off the paired 4s. Reincarnate is a horse that has a very intriguing pattern, in my opinion. Not particularly fast at 2, but steady. 14, 9, 8, 9. Steady, but not very fast, but not slow either. As a 3-year-old, he comes out first time, and I believe he was in Bob's barn for this. Spafford had him, and he runs a 2.3. That puts him square in the race, right? In the slop at Oaklawn, when Tim Yakteen, I believe, ran him for the first time, he runs a 4. Okay, didn't look like he was getting a hold of the track that day. Then he runs a 4-1. Then he comes back, runs a 4-3. So he kind of stayed steady. He could be sitting on a forward move. It's a little hard to read, but he's got that fast race in him. He's got that 2-1, in him. So I got to say, based strictly on that, he can get in contention and win the race. Rocket Can has a really interesting pattern. As a 2-year-old, 12, 16, 1, 8, 8, comes back as a 3-year-old, equals the 8. That was, I guess, the Holy Bull that he won. Then he pairs up 4s, running behind Forte. Now he's got to get past Forte. So he's got to go forward off the 4. But when he pairs those 4s, tells me he can go forward. Does it make him the winner? No, but he can go forward, and that's always something to pay attention to. He's a very interesting horse on the Thorograph. Okay, Skinner, as a 3-year-old, he went way past his 2-year-old numbers, and he runs a 4-2, a 4-1, and in the Santa Anita Derby, he was the widest of the 3. He runs a 2.1. So he got a better number, a faster number than not only the winner, Practical Move, but the horse that I like out of the race, Mandarin Hero, who was second and ran a 3. Now, he was the widest one. So he got the fastest number. He lost the most ground. Ground loss is very important on Thorograph, okay, and Ragazins, both, all those. So that's why he got that. I factor in more so you understand how I think. I factor in more the trips and the trouble. I thought Mandarin Hero had a tougher, rougher trip between horses down the stretch, steadying a little bit, trying to get out, couldn't really get out. You know, and then when he finally did, he was between horses, never really comfortable. So to me, I thought Mandarin Hero ran the better race, and that's why we want coming out of the race. But Skinner, Mandarin Hero's not in the race. Skinner is, and Skinner's got a better number than the winner. Also, a jockey switch to Juan Hernandez, who wins a lot of races. So we're just talking about Thorograph. Horses live. Sun Thunder, he's got a 3 back, but you know, I don't like these in and outers, you know. As a 2-year-old, he run 11, 10, steady, then he runs an 8, goes past the number, then a 3, regresses off the 3, 6, 3, and 6. So he paired 6s, but if he goes forward again, 4, 3, you know, if he really jumps forward, maybe, you know, 2, but probably not. Probably a 3 is his ceiling, not going to be fast enough to win. Tap It Twice, the other horse who's got a 1, like Derma Sotogake. Tap It Twice, does nothing wrong. Phenomenal pattern. As a 2-year-old, he runs an 8, runs a 6, goes forward in the second start. Comes back at 3 at Gulfstream, runs a 4 at Tampa, 4-2. At Tampa, runs a 4-1. Keeneland runs a 1. He goes forward, in my opinion. The race is for second. If he goes forward off that 1, you know, he's going to be a handful to beat. But, you know, we got to do the work. 2 fills. Great pattern. Hard to read because his last race was on the synthetic, and that's his best number at 2. But as a 2-year-old, you know, 15, 11, 7, 7, 7. I like steady numbers. 7, 7, 7, even though a little slow, but 7, 7, 7. I like. Comes back as a 3-year-old, 4, 4. That steadiness. Gets on the synthetic. Boom, runs a 2 in the Turfway Park race. Puts himself square in the Derby. Now, what's he going to do off that? Well, Animal Kingdom won off that track. Rich Strike last year at a big price won off that track. So the numbers tell me this horse can definitely win. And the reason I'm doing this show tonight, for the record, is was going to do an interview with Jareth Loveberry, who's riding 2 fills, and he had to cancel on me. Something came up with him. I hope everything's all right, but something came up. We had to cancel. So I wanted to do this anyway. I figured I allotted the time. I might as well just bang it out and get it done. Hopefully some of you enjoy it and get something out of it. Verifying. Oh, I stand corrected. He ran a 1 also in the race with Tap It Twice. They were together. So here you have 2 horses that were together, both run a run. He run a 1.2. Tap It Twice, run a flat 1, beat him, and was wider than him, outside of him, but they were close. He looks to me more like a horse that's liable to regress off that, because he doesn't have that same kind of pattern. He's got, as a 2-year-old, 9.58. That's okay, but then he's got 5.51. Looks to me like he ran his race last time out. For him to repeat that 1 and not regress off that 1 going forward, those 4 points, probably going to be tough for him. So I like the other pattern on the horse that beat him much better. And that's pretty much all we got. I'm looking at the Oaks now, so that's that. So I won't take up too much of your time. In summary, you know, that's how I look at the patterns. Again, I like to look for patterns that, you know, show me a horse is going to go forward, a horse is going to regress, or a horse is too slow. I don't bother looking for a horse that's just flat out faster than the rest, because, you know, I don't need Thorograph at this point in my life to tell me that. And you really shouldn't either. And if it does happen, you're not going to know. You're not going to be the only one who knows it. The horse is going to be 4 to 5. Everybody's going to know it. So, you know, it's no edge. So you don't need to do that. I like to use them for what I said. So we identified some horses that look like they're going to move forward. We identified some horses look like they're going to regress. Now you take all of that information, you put it in your arsenal. You still handicap, pace, everything else, weather, post position. You know, you paint your picture of who's going to be where, when, who's going to be running at the end. The Derby always throws that curveball at us because they're going an extra, you know, 1/8 of a mile or 1/16 of a mile if you're coming out of the fairgrounds race or whatever the case may be, or the Dubai race, whatever the case may be. They're going 1.25 miles for the first time. Who's going to get the distance? Who isn't? All of these things and others come into play. So, you know, this show was limited to just identifying patterns and a little insight into how I work my Thorograph into my arsenal. Any questions? Shoot them at me in the comments and the messages. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to Pass the Wire TV. I appreciate all of you. Join the seminar. It's going to be great. I'm psyched up for it. We'll find some spots for sure. There's never any guarantees in horse racing, but we'll try and put ourselves in some position and isolate and, you know, find some plays. And just as valuable, we said here, just as valuable, we'll find some plays against, because that helps too. So with that, everybody have a great night. Get psyched up. Enjoy the build up to the Derby. I hope to see you all at the seminar. Questions, shoot them at me. Anybody wants to have a conversation on the phone, go more in detail over Thorograph, anything like that, reach out. I'll squeeze it in. I'll make sure it happens. Don't worry about it. And check out the article about how I learned how to read the sheets, because it's a little humbling and a little funny, and it's an old article. I wrote it years ago when Pass the Wire first started, but I'll still never forget the story. And back then, Teddy was a dangerous bettor, and I took a lot of personal satisfaction when I felt that I surpassed him, because he was the one that taught me how to read the sheets. When everybody used to look, oh, those are the sheet guys. They were all driving Porsches. Everybody else was driving, you know, 8-year-old Monte Carlos. Jonathan Stettin, who I know follow, and he follows me. I knew his brother Jeff. You know, he'll remember these stories and can relate to them when they were the sheet guys. They were the elite bettors back then at Nyla. They were the elite bettors, and they took down some big scores for back then. Hundreds of thousands. I seen it with my own eyes. Even when I was a mutual clerk, and my dad was a mutual clerk, I seen those guys hit for Saratoga 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, which we're going back to 80s, the early 80s. These guys were killing it. The hard dudes, deadly. Jeff, Jonathan, deadly. Guy Allen, Teddy, they were deadly. I learned from watching those guys. Teddy taught me. He actually spent time with me and sat down with me and helped me learn and grasp it. But those other guys, I watched them. They would bet at my window occasionally, and I would you know pick their brains when I could, and they were as good as it gets. And when I got to be on that level, I felt like, you know, that was an achievement and an accomplishment. So and some of you old timers will know exactly who I'm talking about. Jonathan Stettin is on Twitter. He's still active with the Ragsons. I think he's even got a radio show out on the West Coast or something like that. If I knew where it was and how to find it in that time, I would definitely listen to it, because I always liked those guys and they were always nice to me. With that, ciao, everybody. See you at the seminar. See you before then. All the best to everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe, throw us a little love, and we'll throw some back at you. So thanks all, and ciao for now.
Tracking trips with Pick 6 King John Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes. spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
By Uncle Mo. And they're off in the Remsen. As they come on for the finish, and it's going to be tight here in the Remsen. Mo Donegal. Mo Donegal bearing down on the outside. It's Mo Donegal and early voting, and it is Mo Donegal to win the Wood Memorial. And it will be Mo Donegal to win the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.
They're off in the Curlin, Florida Derby. After 3 quarters in 1:12-1, Known Agenda is now on to take over the lead. It's Known Agenda for St. Elias Stable. Florida Derby winner, Known Agenda.
Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING. Get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator exclusively on DRF Bets.
Nobody does it better.